Bucks. Over to you.
All right, Kano, let's jump into it. Number one, look out Geelong. Melbourne are on their way back. Last year, they could not get their back six in order from the get-go. Still went 10-0 to start the season after their premiership in 21. And they were even 25 points up against Freo in round 11 before Freo kicked 12 goals to 1 in the second half that we all remember. And then everything turned. Melbourne went 6 for 6 for the rest of the year and went out in straight sets in the finals. But they look happy, they look healthy, and they look hungry again. So I just think that their back line is where it's all set up. Stephen May, Lever, Petty as a young, underrated key. And I just think that the rest of their game is set up with the confidence of their back six. Their mids are getting back to support. Petrarca looks happy, healthy again. And there's and their forward line setup is dynamic, but it's largely off the back of their confidence in their back six. And you can't underestimate, and what we saw from Gawn and Grundy was excellent, but it just comes back off the confidence in their back six, which is, I reckon, where they got their mojo towards the end of 21. It was just their defence just came together so well that it gave their mids and their forwards so much confidence to go and do what they had to do.
Assistant coach Adam Uze spoke after the game about the way they've changed going inside 50. So I reckon they've set themselves for a fast start. I mean, last week, even after the game, they're doing running. Clearly that fitness aspect has been an issue for them. Second halves let them down last year. But you're right, Richmond would know not to let Melbourne mark the footy in their forward line. Yet it just happens because they're so well organised. There was 28 intercept possessions between May, Lever, Petty and Brayshaw on the weekend, and they scored 6 goals from defensive transition, which is a very high number. What's your
I'll go to the next one, but once again, we're not focusing too much on just pracky matches, but we know what Melbourne's
it's been a strength for ages, though.
What Melbourne's best football looks like. Not dissimilar. Melbourne's best at the end of 21, Geelong's best at the end of 22. Will it be Sydney or Brisbane that pop up and start playing that sort of footy? But those two teams themselves have proven to be able to reach a level that others haven't been able to go with. It'd be great to see 2 or 3 or 4 teams around there by the end of the year. Number 2 is Liam Jones at the Dogs. What can he do to unlock the Bulldogs' capacity from his role at fullback? I mean, he hasn't been seen as a star of the competition at any point in his career, but what he is a very effective key defender. And there's an argument to say that he's in as good a shape and position now to impact for his team as he ever has. And when you're looking at a team that has struggled to find a key defender that they've been able to build a defence around, they've had intercept defenders like Easton Wood as an intercept defender, or other players that have come off and been medium-sized intercept defenders, but they've never had, or for the longest time, haven't had that key defender to build a defence around, which therefore gives the confidence to the midfielders and the forwards to do what they need to do. He's only played in 2 winning seasons in his career, right, Liam Jones. So he's 57 wins and 104 losses in his whole career. In 2010, he played 5 games for 3 wins and 2. 2016 at Carlton, 8 games for 5 wins and 3. But that's just wrong time, wrong place. But could this be right time, right place, and the right guy to help give that midfield and some structure and stability to a Bulldogs back half that has struggled for it, even in their flag year, they were able to do it in different ways.
Is there the potential, and we speak about their midfield power, and you're spot on with Jones. He was just awesome. I mean, the way that he read the cues and the intercept marks that he took, he played 100% game time, just looked ready to go. Is there the potential that losing Dunkley and Hunter could benefit the midfield? Because I always thought they struggled to fit everyone in that midfield, as silly as that sounds. But on the weekend, the numbers that those mids had, and Bailey Smith and Bontempelli and Libba and McRae and Treloar, they're all nearly 30. They were smashed North Melbourne out of the centre bounce. Could that possibly be a positive, losing those two?
Yes, potentially. Or you were talking about trying to find roles for different players at different times when we were talking about Trent Cotchin going out of the midfield. There's no doubt that sometimes you can have too many, and it's not as if that can't be an asset in some ways, but individuals, players, they have a belief in what they are and what they're going to be, but and maybe not enough time in the midfield is a challenge for them. But the Dogs' midfield has the prospects of being as aggressive and impactful as any. Number 3, you got to tackle well to win. I just think we're talking about effective skills in the game. Picking up the ball from the ground cleanly, consistently is my number one. This one, I think, will impact more games than we know going into this year for a few reasons. Stewie Dew on the weekend about Gold Coast tackling, in particular in the third quarter. I'm actually talking about the technique and the capacity to tackle well as a team. The ball carrier is taking on tacklers more than ever, and that is being coached. So let's take the tackler on. There's more. It seems like there's more ways to give frees away. Like the aggressive. If you tackle too aggressively and sling, you don't just get a free. You can actually cop a week. The players will let themselves go forward better than they ever have to force a push in the back. We see the arms being lifted to encourage a high tackle. Knees are getting dropped a little bit. Yeah, even the capacity to tackle for a small defender or even a key defender to tackle an opposition player in the opposition's forward 50, that simple skill 2 or 3 or 4 times a game could be the difference between winning and losing.
They spend enough time on it. Do clubs spend enough time on it?
They definitely have spent a lot of time, probably spending more time on actually taking the tackler on and evading, which means that when you're doing training drills, you're actually getting the other side. You're getting the flip side as well. But I think you can be too aggressive in a tackle and likely give a free kick away, or you can be too passive in a tackle and the ball gets free in a chain of handballs, or you get don't argued. So getting that balance right, the best tackling teams, or the best teams this year will have to be great tackling teams, because it's just too much. There's too much opportunity there for the ball carriers, or frees that could be given away and pressure release if you don't get it right.
There's another point. The umpires are paying more holding the balls. Like, they are not giving the ball winner as much time to dispose of the ball as they once had. That's my observation from the first 2 practice games. So the tackler is going to be rewarded for an effective tackle. So there's no doubt if you get in, there'll be big games and there'll be key moments. We talk about the goals or the big marks or whatever, but there will be a moment across half back where a team looks like they're either going to break through and then go the length of the field and give their forwards a great chance, or it's going to get stopped in its tracks. The teams that do it really well are the teams that stop it in its tracks, and it's generally off the back of extra pressure and a closed down tackle. So number 4 on that. And this is off Broadway a little bit, but the Adelaide Football Club, I'm so impressed by what I've seen from them in the last 13, 14 months, and it's largely around their intensity and their capacity to put pressure on. I encourage anyone to go and have a look at Adelaide's best 22. You're right, by the way.
And have a look at 5 or 6 no-names. I'm right about what?
What you're about to say. Adelaide are better than anyone is giving them credit for.
Well, it's not off the back of their names at all. It's not even off the back of their style of play. I couldn't really. I mean, it's frenetic, and they want to go fast, but there's no name. So Sam Berry, he's a no name, but he seems to lay 10 tackles a game, and he'll pick up high 20s.
He was number 1 for tackling in the league last year, Berry, and who would have thought that?
And Keys, who's come across from Brisbane. Now he's been played as a pressure forward. He kicked 4 goals in the weekend. Once again, not too much on pracky games, but he seems to me like he's become a more team orientated player. He's one of the fittest players in the competition. Schoenberg, no one would know. Their back line looks like it's a cobbled together back 6.
Murray and Butts
is nowhere.
Hinge.
Michelani, Hinge, who's playing on the wing. So there's just no names. But then you go forward. And because of their intensity and because of their pressure on the opposition, you go forward, you're going to have a mix of Walker, Rankin, McAdam, who I think's underrated, who's looks like they're up and about and they believe in what they're doing. Himmelberg, who I think's an underrated tall. Thilthorpe, who probably is going to struggle to get a game in their starting side because of that. You've got Rochelle, Fogarty, who's found something. I just think O'Brien, a workman like Ruckman, but you can't look at the names. I think they'll win. we'll look at the ladder later. They won 8 games last year and they started the season really well. I think they shock teams with their intensity. I think they've got a top 4 intensity with the way they go about it, and I just reckon don't be penciling wins in against Adelaide. You'll have to earn them.
Yeah, I was going to do some winners and losers a little bit later on this morning, and you can send some through as well. But we hadn't compared notes, but one note I'd written down in that on Adelaide, I said pound for pound they might be the best team in the competition, and that's what you're saying. But talent for talent, they're maximising what they've got better than any other side with how tough and how hard they tackle and how much they pressure the opposition. You're spot on with that one.
And through my coach lens, I look across and I said all credit to Matty Nix and the coaching team for putting together whatever it is in their mentality that brings that out of their team. That's a great asset to have. Number 5, and to finish it off this morning, Carlton have work to do. I was quoted as saying they might not make it, and there is I think that it's not run and won. It's not something that I'd be expecting to be a fait accompli. Ash Hansen had this to say about the Blues last Pracky match. They didn't have Sam Walsh, who eventually will come back into that side and is one of the best transition runners in the competition, let alone in Carlton's team. But they cannot just roll into this season and assume improvement and assume that they're going to go from 9th to into the finals. It's the hardest position to make up between 9th and 8th at the end of the year on the ladder. Their top end is elite. Their clearance work into their forward aerial, when they get that going, they're nearly unbeatable. Their plan A and the best of their best is as good as any team in the competition, but their transition efficiency needs work. So when you haven't got your A game going and you need to grind it out, I'm not sure how they hold up effectively and efficiently against momentum against them. And I think that the whack on top of this, the psychological challenge, and Vossi spoke about this in an article on the AFL website, they're trying to stay in the moment. They want to make sure that they're not getting ahead of themselves. And we've got to deal with things step by step as we go along. Saying that is the right attitude. Doing it is harder than actually the words that you need to caution against it.
He is back. Look out, Geelong. Liam Jones at the Dog. You got to tackle well to win. Adelaide, a top 4 intensity team, and the Blues with work to do. The buck stops here for tyre power. Now, this is the sliding scale that's used bucks for each team. You want to quickly explain your method and how it works?
Yeah, well, last year, about the same time of year, just thought, what the worst season and the best season that each team could have, because it's really hard to come to a definitive ladder, I reckon, because there's so many moving parts. But looking at this year, I've got a clear top 4. I think Geelong, Melbourne, Brisbane, and Sydney are clear top 4. I think I have Geelong winning as little as 16, as many as 19. I don't think they can win less than 16. I mean, obviously they could, but I think that's their spread. Melbourne, I have 15 to 18. Brisbane, 15 to 18. Sydney, 15 to 18. So I think they're a clear top 4 in my eyes. Yeah. I don't think anyone goes near those 4 teams.
Bulldogs, Collingwood.
I don't have the top 8 changing too when I look at a balance of probabilities. I have Richmond as probably the next most likely team. I think they'll be overs from their 13.5 wins. I've got them 12 to 16. I've got the Bulldogs 11 to 16 games, so as little as 11, as many as 16, and that'll be up on their 12 from last year. And I have Collingwood and Fremantle sort of filling the 7th and 8th spots. But for me, both of those will struggle to get the wins that they got last year. Collingwood at 16. They had 9 games, close wins. I think, the balance of probability says that if they have 9 of those close games, that they won't win. Won't be 9 zip on that next year. And Fremantle, I just wonder which one's turning up, the defensive juggernauts of the first half, or the second half that were actually a little bit leaky and not really that not that effective. So, but I still have them in the top. That's their top 8 sides that I have.
Bucks is top 8. Geelong, Melbourne, Brisbane, Sydney, Richmond, Bulldogs, and Freo.
Collingwood and Freo.
Collingwood and Freo. Sorry. Do you do the bottom 10?
Yeah, I have, and I think the sides that I think will contend for and challenge the bottom half for the 8. I think Carlton are going to be around the same. I think they're between about 10 to 14 wins. Port Adelaide, again, as I said earlier, I have them as little as 10, as many as 16, but I still think they'll do better than their 10 wins of last year. I just don't know how much better. And a surprise, the big overs for me are GWS. I think they only won 6 games last year. I think they'll go as few as 8, as many as 14, and I think that they will be a real surprise to most. I just think the talent level that they have and a slightly fresh game plan that'll come. I think it's a little bit faster going forward, and I think GWS will be one to watch.